Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. And today I'm going to talk about some of the feedback we've gotten from people and some of the conversation starters we've had and some of the conversation derailers that we've had. We bring to you what we call heterodox economics, heterodox being not in the normal, not in the mainstream, out of the mainstream. So orthodoxy is what you have with the Vatican. Heterodox is what you have with, say, the Protestants, if you want to go that way. But the reality is that we do preach what they call heterodox economic theory. Some of it is theory when we start putting our politics behind it. Some of it, when we're talking about modern monetary theory, is just facts. We're not talking about what to do with this knowledge. We're just simply stating this is knowledge. Now, I have this book here. It's going to show up backwards. But for many of you guys out there who can read in backwards, this says The Creature from Jekyll Island. Okay? This right here is a book that every libertarian, every conspiracy theorist, every, wannabe, sleuth finder, you name it, has read or has in their possession or has gone to the library and picked up and has told their friends and told their other friends and so on, all the horrors of the Federal Reserve. Now I'm going to read you some of the comments on the back of this, right? So it says, scary, the story of the world banking system. Enough said. This is a murder mystery about the financial murder of the middle class. A gripping adventure into the secret world of the international banking cartel. As a career banker and president of a bank consulting firm, I thought I had a good understanding of the Federal Reserve, but this book changed the way I view our entire monetary system. I have just finished reading this for the fourth time. Each time it adds another gloss of patina to truth. My wife manages a large Maine library and told me there are over 37 people on the waiting list for The Creature from Jekyll Island. Branch libraries have similar reservations. Stan. Well, Stan, I have a copy of it right here. You can have it. It's a bunch of bullshit. There's some information in here that's good information. It's true. Some of it's true, right? It's not all. I didn't write a fiction novel completely from start to finish. That's not what the problem is. The problem is, if you go back to Abraham Lincoln had to do all kinds of stuff to get the 13th Amendment passed. I mean, he had to go crazy to get the 13th Amendment passed. And there are many who would say that Abraham Lincoln did some horrible, horrible constitution-killing things by freeing the slaves, by working to do that. And the reality is that back then, I'm sure things happened in 1913 and even before that made people scratch their heads. And I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that happened in 1913, just like there was a lot of things that happened in 1865 and beyond, right? There was a lot of stuff that has happened. And the reality is that we don't sit there and live in that world, right? At the end of the day, I read through this about 7 times because I used to be a Ron Paul guy. Remember this, folks. I am not a modern monetary theory guy because I just stumbled onto a nugget of gold and said, oh, well, shit, man, let's just go ahead and talk about this all the time, right? I came from a Republican background. I came from a libertarian background. I have training in Keynes. I have training in Rothbard. I have training in friggin' Mises. I have training in friggin' all the different ones. Milton Friedman, Adam Smith, all the way back. Wealth of Nations, you name it. I have gone through all kinds of schooling. And so I always preached austerity. I was a Republican. I was a right-winger. Folks, I was a right-winger. Right-winger. Like a big-time supply-side guy who believed that, oh my God, the debt is the biggest thing to fear in the world. Folks, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. I lived this world. And I lived it forever, for a long, long time. For a very, very long time. I said all the stupid things about the debt clock. I would sit there and say, look at the debt clock, look at the debt clock, look at the debt clock. And I would say it over and over again, all the time. I kid you not, I swear on my life, if you knew how much guilt I have for spewing stupidity, if you knew how much guilt I bear, it would make you understand why I do this day in, day out. Because like the Apostle Paul said, I got to redeem the time. I got to make up for all that bullshit I spit into the world and get rid of it. Now, I had an MBA. I used to do my live streams over there in front of my degrees, thinking that somehow or another a bunch of revolutionaries would be impressed by seeing two pieces of paper on the wall. The reality is it doesn't make a difference because I had to unlearn more of my MBA than I ever learned during my MBA. And so, as the story goes, you can't fill a full cup. A full cup thinks they know everything. And so when you pour new stuff into a full cup, it just goes all over the table, right? So we have these people that come onto our live streams claiming to just want to learn. They just want to learn. And I have a professional economist on here with me, someone who really, really, really knows his shit. He's doing it for free, doing it out of love and compassion for his fellow man, trying to tell us that the government is starving us. And these people, instead of listening, instead of reading any of the millions of links we provide, folks, I back up every word I say. I never talk shit without having backup. And folks, I back up everything I say because it's not about me, it's about us, right? And it's about changing the way we look at the world so that you aren't suffering, so my kids aren't suffering. Next thing, I don't work for Vladimir Putin. I don't. I don't work for the banking cartels. I don't work for the Republican Party. I don't work for Donald Trump. I am a real progressive. And that means that I tell the truth. That means that I beat the living shit out of the Democrats. I beat the living shit out of the Republicans. And I beat the living shit out of LOL libertarians. I also beat the shit out of the Green Party when they're wrong. I beat the shit out of anybody that lies or misspeaks. So what I do is I go through incredible amounts of research. Not just like, oh, that's just a really neat opinion. Hey guys, I have an opinion, you have an opinion. All opinions are equal. Wrong. They're not. And so Ellis comes on with me. And Ellis Winningham is a brilliant man. Now, Ellis Winningham is also someone who is so smart. And yet one of the people, the guy likes the Dead Kennedys and wants me to use Dragula by Rob Zombie as our theme music. Okay. So this is a guy, a man amongst the men, but he is a genius and he knows this stuff better than almost anyone that I've ever talked to. And I have the privilege and the honor of being able to text with him whenever I need to call him on the phone and ask him questions whenever I need to get a heads up when he's written an article, whenever he's written one, and to have him on my show weekly. I have him explaining things to me. He is not political at all. The man is not a political guy. He is just an economist. And he is not just any economist. He's a macroeconomist. He's an econometrics guru. And he is a man that understands what we call economic reality or macroeconomic reality, which is also known as modern monetary theory, which is just currency analysis. It's not telling you to deficit spend. It's not telling you to cut. It's not telling you to do anything. It's merely telling you exactly how federal financing works and how economics in general works in any currency situation. For example, MMT would even describe the European Union, and it would even describe the European central banking system, and it would even describe the relationship between the euro, the European banking central bank, and Greece, for example. Greece being non-monetarily sovereign, the ECB being the sovereign and not tied to any landmass, not tied to any one nationality. That is the failure of the European Union because no one is sovereign. So only the net exporters win. All the net importers are losing big time in that arrangement. It's going to fail. It's going to blow up. How do I know that? Modern monetary theory. It's not modern monetary theory says to be a communist. It's not modern monetary theory says to be an LOL libertarian or an Austrian or anything else. It simply describes the system as it is today. So with that in mind, we had a gentleman last night come through, and he wasn't interested in listening. He wasn't interested in learning. He was interested in trolling the page. And he did it with that whole air of, I'm just asking questions. But he wasn't asking questions. Here's a question. Hey, Steve, how does the Federal Reserve print money? Well, it doesn't. The Bureau of Engraving does within the Treasury. Oh, well, how did all this money get lost from the Federal Reserve? It didn't. Federal Reserve is a bunch of spreadsheets keyed in, okay? The money that you're talking about, there's a difference between paper money and digital money, right? I mean, seriously, there's a difference. There's many, many, many trillions of dollars more in digital money than in paper money. You didn't know that, right? Banks don't lend reserves. That's a truth. It's just a fact. It's not a subject of opinion. It's just true. Banks don't lend your money out. That's not how it works. There is no fractional reserve system. Doesn't exist. Not true. Hasn't been true. The money multiplier myth was a lie from Jump Street. I provided links for that. I've had an economist tell you about that. I've had two economists tell you about that. But this individual decided to saunter in. You know that whole saunter thing. They're going to tell us. They're not here to learn. They're here to tell us, but act like they're asking questions. But they're really not asking questions. And so trollometrics is something that we don't tolerate a lot of. Because all opinions aren't equal. We're not here to debate this. This is not a debate. We're not sitting here saying, well, what do you think? Do you think this is right? No, we're telling you. And we're backing it up with links. We're backing it up with facts. I'm bringing in experts that are true, knowledgeable individuals who are doing this for free, who get nothing from this other than the fact that they want to share the knowledge. And because I want to save my kids from a life as bad as we have it today, I want to make their lives better, and I want to fix the planet so that it's inhabitable by human beings, so that we are able to stave off any kind of human-induced climate change if we're not past an event horizon. I'm sitting there doing this round the clock too for the same reasons. It's not because I'm a statist, although I am. It's not because I am, a communist or anything else, or a Trump plant, or a Putin plant, or a friggin' whatever. I'm a truth seeker. And no one else is talking about this stuff, but I am. So I'm either a fool, which I'll accept you believing. You'd be a fool to say that, but I accept that you might think it. Or I'm a brave son of a bitch talking about something you all don't hear elsewhere. And I do it day in and day out. Now, I don't really need a title. I don't care about the title. What I do care about is making a population of progressives to learn how to enact the policies they claim to want. And I promise you, my only goal is to advance progress and to advance our country into a place of learning that doesn't accept crumbs anymore. Every one of the people that talk about this book right here, not one of them can tell you how to make a progressive agenda come true. Not one of them. You know why? Because they don't care. All they care about is conspiracy theories. I have the book. I know. I read it. I was once an idiot too. I call you an idiot because I was once one too. And I'm telling you, I got the book to prove it. Okay? Now, that said, the people that follow that book, that come around, talk, saunter in about the Fed, this, that, and the other, literally cannot tell you how they're going to get single-payer health care. They think they're going to tax the rich somehow or another and make single-payer happen. So they would rather hold you and my children hostage fighting some war that doesn't matter because taxes don't fund spending. They would rather fight that war and keep our kids without health care. They would rather deprive us of basic needs than to admit this stupid book is not telling you how federal financing works from 1971 to present. It's not. I mean, I was reading this and they're talking about how banks lend your money out. That's not how it works either. That's not how it works. But shamefully, people will saunter around and say that. Now, the issue is not whether you don't know something. The issue is when you come to a place like Real Progressives, where our only goal is to teach you how to enact progressive legislation. That's the only goal, is to teach you how to fund Bernie Sanders programs, teach you how to fund Jill Stein's Green New Deal. You realize that none of those programs would work trying to tax our way to them. I kid you not. This is not like I'm making this up. I'm telling you straight truth. There is not a single one of the programs you claim to love that you followed that are going to be handled by some sovereign citizen bullshit. There's not one of them that's going to be done by one single person talking about paying down the debt. The debt is a bunch of savings accounts. The interest is like you getting interest on your savings account. Since when did that become something horrible? And the interest is not paid by you and I. It's keystrokes on a computer, folks. We've talked about this so many times. Ellis has talked about this so many times. Warren talked about it. Stephanie Kelton's talked about it. Pavlina Cherneva's talked about it. Joe Firestone will talk about it on Thursday night. And I talk about it all the time. How many of you know, and I'm not talking about you longtime listeners and stuff, but how many of you all out there know who Stephanie Kelton is? Seriously. Stephanie Kelton is a professor at UMKC, and she is a heterodox economist. She was one of the chief contributors, and not the starter, of a blog called New Economic Perspectives, which you see us frequently quote. Stephanie Kelton was also the chief economist for the U.S. Senate Budget Committee for the Democrats under Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders appointed her to that. And Stephanie Kelton was also, wait for it, the architect and chief economist for Bernie Sanders' presidential run that gave us $33 trillion of new spending over 10 years. Now you ask why I say that. Because a lot of burners will fight me tooth and nail that I'm wrong. And that is offensive. To be so stupid, to be so wrong, to fight me when I can verify what I'm saying. When all I'm trying to do is help bring about Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders' economic plans into fruition, into the mainstream. You remember what Hillary Clinton said? It was all pie in the sky. I'm giving you the tools to defeat the Hillary Clintons of the world who lie, who destroy economies. But the same people who lie, and they have to be lying, they either are lying that they support Bernie Sanders, or they're lying that they understand economics, or they're lying about, they're wrong, there's something screwed up because they can't be so stupid about this stuff and claim to have loved Bernie, because Bernie's plan was so robust, so wonderful, so timely, and so needed. $33 trillion. His tax proposals didn't even come close to touching it. Bernie proffered up, remember this, folks, a Wall Street speculation tax to pay for this stuff. Now, what's a Wall Street speculation tax? I know a lot of people don't know this word, and that means they probably shouldn't have an opinion on it. but I'm going to say it anyway. Word is Pigovian. Pigovian taxes. Pigovian taxes are behavior modification taxes. They're taxes we put on things that are bad for the country, that we don't want to happen. We want to get rid of. We want to stop the behavior. So all this high-speed trading, all the speculation and stuff, Bernie Sanders was going to tax Wall Street. Bernie Sanders was very, very cautious and saying, hey, you guys want to balance the budget? Well, you're not going to balance the budget on the backs of the poor. Okay? Why did he say that? Well, there are some that say Bernie was a coward and was too afraid to talk about MMT directly. There's others like myself who take a slightly different tact. I believe that Bernie said, hey, they're already saying everything I'm saying is pie in the sky. I'm probably not going to win. I can't believe I'm going to win, but I need to change the conversation so that people begin to accept no less than the best for their families. That's what I choose to believe. So Bernie Sanders teed up a subject that many people weren't ready to have. There's a word called the Overton window. The Overton window is a political term describing a specific period in time, what the realm of possibility is. And it's based on the think tanks, it's based on, the press, it's based on common knowledge and what the public will take. Bernie Sanders in one election cycle moved the Overton window far to the left compared to what it was, which is still center because we've moved so far to the right because of these debt and deficit hawks. Folks, it is impossible to be a progressive and be a debt or a deficit hawk. You literally cannot be one. Because every progressive value, every progressive program, every progressive ideal requires reality to set in and understand that we are a net importer and that we must spend on the 99% to have a thriving, prosperous country. If you don't believe that, you're probably not a progressive. You're probably just a mainstream Democrat and don't like the way the party's acted. You're probably just an establishment shill and don't even realize it. But I am telling you right now, Paul Krugman is a neoliberal hack. Most of the people you read about are neoliberal hacks. And what they do is they try to privatize, they try to get rid of any kind of regulatory environment. They try to dumb things down. They try to tell Wall Street to cut it out. And I'm telling you right now that a progressive doesn't do that. Progressive wants to break up the big banks. But the big banks are getting you and I into debt. Not the country. The country itself doesn't require our tax dollars to spend. And that's the difference between us and our nation. Our federal government is the creator of the US dollar. Period. This is not up to debate, folks. To say otherwise is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so when people come around to the page, I'm not in the position of debating. I present information. I provide links to back up my sources. And I sit there, and when people legitimately have a question, I answer it. You can ask anybody that's come to me in my inbox. People call me on the phone. I've talked to many, many, many people on the phone. I've spent hours on the phone with people, answering any question I can. I bring experts to answer questions I can't. It's going to be okay for a troll to ride through here and expect to get my time. There are real people with real questions that want to save the country, that want to enact progressive policies, that are asking questions so that they can learn. And those are the people I'm going to spend my time with. And if that makes people feel hurt or bruised or wounded in some way, shape, or form, too bad. You're killing America. Trolling is for people that have just absolutely nothing going on in their lives. What I'm doing today is trying to save our country for my children. Selfishly, I want my kids to have a better country. I want your kids to have a better country. I want us to have a world that's inhabitable by human beings. And so the people that sit there and bring up, what about debt and deficits? If they can't answer, and I mean down to the frickin' penny, how they're getting me single payer, I consider them a troll. If they can't answer me how they're getting me paid family and medical leave, I consider them a troll. I don't mind if they ask questions, but if they saunter in and distract the conversation with trying to friggin' negate the things that are presented, I consider them a troll. They're wasting time. This is not a debate. People that haven't read the links that we post with these things, that come in and ask stupid questions that could have been solved by doing a little bit of effort on their own, instead of me jump through hoops to do it for them. Talk about personal responsibility. Start there. Do the homework. That's personal responsibility. That's like a Spicoli moment. Hey, if I'm here and you're here, doesn't it make it our time? Do your homework, and I will answer your questions. If you just sit there and saunter in and say things that have nothing to do with what we're talking about, I'm ignoring it. I got to. Too much time. Too many people really want the answers. They're really, really taking the time to read. They watch the videos. They do the homework. And they come back and they ask questions. That's a fair exchange of my time and your time. But it is not a fair exchange coming in here as a troll, sauntering in with a bunch of LOL libertarian bullshit. This is real progressives. This is not real libertarians. This is real progressives. It's not real Democrats. This is real progressives. It's not whatever the hell you want it to be. It's real progressives. And we are trying to fight for progress. Unashamedly, unabashedly, straightforward. This is what we're doing. And I would expect that if you really, really loved Bernie's plans, and if you really, really, really love Jill Stein's Green New Deal, and that's what you really, really love, I strongly suggest that unless you have a legitimate question and have done the homework, remove the cotton from your ears and place it in your mouth and raise your hand and ask questions so that everyone can learn. I'm not even being a smartass. I'm being straight up. Be respectful of other people. I'm not here to entertain your troll desires. I'm here to educate people and guide them and help get them to the right people who can help them and help us make progress. So, what's coming up? Tomorrow night, I'll have Green Party former presidential candidate and campaign manager for Jill Stein, David Cobb, will be joining me tomorrow night. Then on Thursday night, I'll have heterodox economist and good friend and author Joe Firestone. I've also got preliminary word that I will be able to interview Pavlina Cherneva again, probably sometime after the 8th. And drum roll, looks like I will be able to line up an interview with Calvin Priest and Kashama Sawant. I'm very excited about that. That's coming up TBD, but I'm so excited about that. So with that, folks, have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.